And we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. If you would type into the chat, let us know where you're from. Ukraine, Iceland, New York City, Florida, Paris, Texas, Kenya, Virginia, Sweden. Hello. Canada, Baltimore, Moscow, wonderful. Milan, from the internet. India, cool. Romania, wonderful. Thank you all for coming here today. This is awesome. So just to make sure that you can all hear me, if you can hear me, say hello, Dave, into the chat. And once I see that, we'll get started. Vancouver, Virginia, West Coast of Canada. So cool. Hello, Dave. All right, somebody can hear me. Awesome. All right, let's get started. We got a lot for you today. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I'm super excited to be here today because I'm going to be sharing something that I think is going to make a huge difference for so many of you. And you know, I bet a lot of you would love to have music be a bigger part of your life, right? That's why you're here. You might think, man, if I could just reach more people who really dig what I'm doing, that would be so fulfilling and rewarding for me. But I know, you know, a lot of people think that maybe you're too old to start or you don't know the right people. And that could be something that stays in the back of your head, making you doubt whether you can really have fulfillment and recognition through music in your career. And I just want to tell you right now that, you know, having any block in front of you is just not going to get you anywhere, because you can find an audience that will truly support you and that loves what you're doing at any age and in any stage of your career. And you can release music without a record label. You can license music without a publisher, and you can find gigs, and you can make good money in music, all of that. And that's what we're going to cover in this webinar today. I'm going to show you 5 easy things you can do right now, today, right after the webinar, that will help you build a fulfilling career in music and get the recognition that you deserve, no matter how old you are, no matter what stage you are in your music career. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Kusek. I'm the director of the New Artist Model Online Music Business School. I'm also the founder of Berklee Online, the world's largest music school, and I've had the honor of working with thousands of independent musicians, songwriters, producers, business people over the years to help pursue their dreams in music. Before that, I helped bring the MIDI standard to the market. That I know a lot of you use MIDI. I started the very first music software company called Passport, and I developed one of the first digital sequencers. I've been working in music my whole life, and my whole career has been about helping musicians do what they love to do. And that's what the New Artist Model Online School is all about. So I want to say hello to everyone and introduce a couple of people. So here we are. I'm joined today by Nigel from McGill Music Saxophone School, who's going to share some of his touring stories and much, much more. So say hello, Nigel.
G'day, everybody. Hi, Dave. Hey, it's great to see so many people on the call today, too. And you know what? I'm excited about being here, actually. I run McGill Music Sax School, like Dave said, which is an online learning platform for saxophone players. And I get to help lots of players. In fact, we help thousands and thousands of students from all around the world, adults mostly, learn saxophone, whether that's from the beginning or coming back to saxophone later on in life. And one of the cool things I love about what I'm doing with that is watching students go from getting started with playing to going out and actually starting to, you know, put bands together and starting to build something around their playing and, you know, create a life for themselves in music, which is very, very exciting. So my background is as a performer, actually. It's great to hear Dave's background. He's a legend with all this stuff. I worked as 25 years as a pro sax player. So for me, I went through that same process. In fact, I started out trying to work out how to find that very first gig and get someone to give me some money for going and playing, and then built a career which, you know, I got to do some amazing things like doing national broadcasts with symphony orchestras and playing on hit TV shows and touring to play in jazz festivals in Japan and all sorts of stuff. And I actually ended up in the process of my career getting to the point where I was then the person employing lots and lots of musicians for one of the hit shows here on London's West End stage. So I wish I had the knowledge that Dave's going to teach you tonight when I was getting started out, because that would have really made that process a lot easier. So I'm really excited about this session today. It's going to be loads of fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for inviting a lot of your Sax School members. Hello to everybody from the Sax School. And before we move on, I want to also introduce everyone to Chelsea Ira, who works with me in New Artist Model. Say hi, Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to be hanging out in the chat with you guys and answering any questions you have. And also, if you have any questions for Dave and Nigel, type them into the chat. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So I'll be gathering those up.
Awesome. All right, back to the show. Okay, so as Chelsea said, we are going to be taking questions throughout the webinar. Please feel free to type in your questions if you have them, and at the end we will be answering all your questions. And also today, we have a very special gift for everyone. So make sure you stick around to the end of the webinar, because we have this free planning ebook for you. Inside, you're going to find a lot of tips that will help you set your goals and set yourself in motion to achieve them. And it really goes hand in hand with everything that we're sharing with you today. Okay? And then, as I said, we're going to take your questions. So stick around. We're going to go for about an hour today. Now, because we know music is a strong passion for you, and you thankfully took the time to be here today for this webinar, but music can be so much more than just a passion if you want it to be. And what I'm going to show you today is taken from my Music Business Accelerator online course that is all about helping you take your music business chops to the next level. And we're going to be giving you a quick look inside that program a little bit later on and offering you a very special chance to sign up as a VIP member, but more about that later. Right now, I want to dive into my first question for everyone and ask you, what's holding you back from achieving your dreams as a musician or a songwriter? Now, I know a lot of you want to release your music or get out there and gig or maybe even license your music. But maybe you think it's too hard, or maybe you think you're not good enough, or that you don't know the right people, or that maybe you're too old to really do anything meaningful with your music. I hear these excuses over and over and over again. And that's why Nigel and I created this webinar, to help you get over those kind of hurdles. Because we've seen too many musicians push their music aside and later on wonder why they spent a better part of their life working at some day job that just wasn't fulfilling for them and not pursuing music. You're here today because you're interested in seeing what you might do to make music pay off for you, for whatever that means for you. So why not explore that potential right now so that you don't have any regrets down the road? Take out a notebook, because I'm going to share some stuff with you today that I hope will be quite useful for you. The first thing to do is to figure out what role you see music playing in your life as you move forward. Is it something that you want to just be a hobby for yourself, or something you do more for the creative fulfillment than any sort of monetary gain? I mean, that's fine. Or is it something that you'd like to pursue to also bring in some money, maybe be an income for you or supplement your income? Or maybe you envision music becoming a full-time career for you someday. So just type into the chat and share with us, what role do you see music playing in your life moving forward, right? Not the past. Where do you want to go with music? That's the question. Just type into the chat and share it with us. Now, no matter what you want to do with music, I want you to know that it's just never too late to start. So many people come to me thinking, oh man, I wish I had done this before. And I say, well, Leonard Cohen, he didn't release his first album until he was 33. And his hit song, Hallelujah, the one that he's really known very well for, didn't come until he was 50. Debbie Harry didn't see the success that they did with Blondie until the third album when she was in her 30s. Sheryl Crow, same thing. She didn't break out of the mainstream until she was in her 30s with her song, All I Want to Do. And there are many, many other examples of songwriters and musicians and producers and niche artists who break into music, at a later point in their life. They're not the teeny bopper, the teen idol that everybody always thinks you have to be to get started in music. So now let's go through the 5 steps to bring you more fulfillment and recognition in your music. And here's step number 1. Now, in the past, there were basically 2 ways to, quote, make it. You could get signed to a record label and release albums and tour, or you could get signed to a publishing company and write music as a songwriter and a composer. Those are basically the 2 ways to move forward. But those gatekeepers, the labels and publishers, they were more interested in signing really young talent because it was a business investment, right? They wanted to invest their time and money into someone who'd give them years and years of income and sales. And this is where that myth that you have to be young to break into music really comes from, right? It comes from this old model. But that really isn't the way things work anymore. Today, there are more people making music than ever before. The real lessons to learn come from niche musicians who are supporting themselves with music in a niche market. And I'll talk more about that later. Now, today, there really are no more gatekeepers keeping you from entering the business and from finding success and from finding opportunities for yourself. You don't need a record label to put out a great album or an EP. Heck, you don't even need a publisher to get your song cut by another artist or placed in a TV show or a film if you're willing to do the work. It's wide open. And this is the model that the Music Business Accelerator course that I talked about. It's all about this model of being an independent artist. You build your own career up, you find your own audience, you set up some sustainable revenue streams for yourself, and you set up a business around your music. You do that first before you ever have to worry about trying to find a label deal or an agent or a manager or a publisher, because they want to see you get yourself off the ground. So how do you actually do this? How do you build a business around your music from the ground up? I know it sounds intimidating, but stay with me, because we're going to go through it together step by step. All right, let's talk about how do you get started. A music career is like a startup business, and you need to think like an entrepreneur. And if you treat your career and your music as a startup enterprise, you're going to have a lot of fun, and you're going to learn by doing. That is the startup ethos. Whatever it is that you want to accomplish, whether it's, you're starting from scratch, you've never played a gig, never, produced or released a record or anything, or if you're growing a music career that you already have and you want to make it bigger and more healthy, first thing that you have to do is you need to start moving. Even if it's just small steps, the key is to start moving toward your goal. Set a goal, put yourself in motion. I want you to think about this as, a way to move forward. Start by taking one small action every day, fitting it in between, your job responsibilities, your other commitment, your family, whatever. Treat music as, part of your job. It has to be a job. It has to be part of your commitment. So maybe it's practicing or posting in a local social network or a community network, or, scouting out local gig opportunities, whatever it is, recording a demo, writing a song. The important thing to do is to get out there and be ready to react and to learn by taking one small step every day. Build it into your calendar, build it into your habits. Small steps will always get you further than sitting around wondering, oh, well, should I do this? Or could I do this? Or I'm not sure I'm ready. Get moving. Because you're going to learn more by doing than you will by putting things off. You know what you typed into the chat, where you want music to be in your life? Start taking steps toward that. Now, the fastest way to start building your audience is to start putting your music out there. You know, fans, they don't form around thin air. If you start sharing your music and spreading the word now, you'll start building an audience and you'll gather up some fans one by one, so that by the time perhaps you're ready to release an album or an EP, you'll actually have people in your audience that will listen and maybe buy what you put out there, or maybe show up for some of your gigs. But if you wait until you're, quote, ready and finished and everything's perfect before you start building your audience, you know, you're going to find yourself releasing an album to nobody. And that's no place to be. So get started, because you can't make a mistake. You know, things will go wrong. That's fine. You want to learn from trying and putting your music out there. That's the startup culture that you're part of as an independent musician these days. And that's what we teach with our career planning tools. Now, if you're just starting out in the music business, here are some simple things that you can do to get going. Get at least one song recorded. Get that under your belt. Don't worry about releasing an album or an EP, just a song. That's it. That will become content that you can share on social media. You can share on a website, so that you can start building up an audience. You could start building up maybe an email list. Another thing you could do is get at least one social channel set up. The biggest mistake I see people make is wasting your time trying to learn about all of the social channels and everything you possibly could do online. Don't do that. Focus your efforts on the social channel that you're most comfortable with and where you can begin to reach your audience. For a lot of people, that might be Facebook, or it might be Instagram. Whatever it is, pick one and get going on it. Okay, you also need to set up a website. I think that this is really critical. You can't just have an Instagram profile or a Facebook page. I recommend Bandzoogle because they're very easy to set up and they have a lot of features musicians need, like gig calendars and a whole lot more, but you could use anything to create your own spot on the web. And finally, start setting up an email list and begin trading your music for email addresses and collecting emails at your gigs, maybe using a clipboard or something like that. Especially if your audience is a little bit older, say over 30, email may be the very best way, if not the only way, that you're going to reach them. I always recommend tools like MailChimp because they have a very good free version to get you started. And I don't have time to get into email marketing today, but these are some of the strategies that we cover in the New Artist Model in our Music Business Accelerator. Now, here's one of my students, Lee Norman, whose story I think you might relate to. Lee abandoned music early on to pursue a safe path as a career man and as a family man. He just kind of hung it up, all right? But after 20 years of working in real estate, he realized that pursuing a music career was what he really wanted to do. And so he changed his life. He changed everything, and he got started with music. He formed a band. He recorded an EP in his bedroom with his laptop, a mic, and a guitar. He released that. He started to build up his audience. And he's told me that his biggest roadblock was his own belief that he couldn't do it. And he says, once he got past that, and once he started to take one small action every day toward his dream of being a musician, a full-time musician, that little wins started to turn into bigger momentum, and he started to get himself in motion. Okay, once you start your momentum up, once you start releasing music and playing more gigs, the next step is to find the right audience for your music. And what do I mean by that? People who will really stand behind what you're doing and support you. To identify your audience, you need to understand who your ideal fan is. This is like Business 101, your prototype customer. Once you understand that, you can start figuring out where those people are and how do you get them into your camp. Now, the first thing I want to make clear is you don't need a huge fan base to be successful in music. You don't need tens of thousands of people. You just don't. It's a trap to think that you need to be relatable to a mass market. In fact, it works in your favor to define a niche and target a much smaller base of fans. So, if your genre is metal and you can narrow that down into a subgenre of metal, you're going to be better off because that's a niche strategy for you. So what is a niche? I want you to take a few minutes to think about what your niche is. How can you define yourself based off what genre you play, sort of the image that you project, your hobbies, your passions beyond music, how you want to communicate, what makes you unique from other people. All of these things can go into helping you create a niche strategy for yourself. So take that stuff into account and figure out how you're going to describe yourself. Let's go through a few really easy ideas anyone can use right now to build a fan base using a niche strategy. The more narrow you can get, the better. Now, a great starting point is to collaborate with other musicians or bands in a similar genre to yours, or maybe with similar interests to you. You could collect around a point of interest, maybe a charity or something. Doesn't have to be the music itself. Now, we're going to talk more about how you can network and get connections with other bands and musicians in a few minutes. So stick around for that. But right now, I want you to think about, who do you know who plays in a similar genre to you? Maybe you met them at an open mic, or you're already buddies with them, or whatever. But think of somebody that you could do a simple cross promotion or collaboration with. You could write a song together, or you could cover a song together, and you could share it out on your social media page or your email list if you have one. You can join together for a little performance at a local club. It doesn't have to be a big, giant, 3-set gig. You could just start and get going at a local open mic. And you partner with somebody that already maybe has a little bit of an audience, and you give a shout out to one another. You're helping to build each other's audiences. The more you can get your music in front of an already engaged and interested audience, the more successful you can be. So don't worry about, overnight fame and success. Go open for your buddy who's already got a following. Ask him if you can play a few songs, and you're going to start to build momentum, right? So many people think that, if they can just get their CD in a place like Starbucks or something, they're going to be set. But let me tell you, there's no engagement there. You won't know who your audience is. People will get their coffee and move on. You're not going to move forward as much as you can by this collaboration strategy. Okay, another idea is to get your music out to local influencers. What do I mean by that? Are there any music bloggers you know of? Local news outlets, small radio stations? Is there a college radio station around you? Are there any local music publications around you? I know it can be scary to reach out to these kind of people, but if you start small and work your way up, you're going to be fine. Again, relevance is the key. So if you understand your niche, you can look for the right kind of outlet. If you're a jazz band, target your efforts and reach out to influencers who are interested in jazz. Look into a local jazz station rather than going at the big popular rock station or top 40 station. Find your niche, go after it. See if you can connect with people who have influence in that genre, and get them to know what you're about. And finally, you can use live performance to reach new fans. The more often you're performing, the more people you're going to be exposing to your music. And the key is to find some way to connect with these people after the show is over. So here are some tips. Try having a clipboard with an email sign-up form at your, pass it around, or have it at your merch table if you have any merch at the back of the show, or hang out and talk to people after you play and collect email addresses after you play. Get to know them. Understand who your target audience is. That's what I'm talking about here. Music Business 101. You should also make it really obvious how the audience can connect with you again. Mention your website and the social channel that you're working. Do shout outs for that from the stage, or you can hand out little cards with your website so people can find you later, right? You're beginning the process. Don't worry if it seems like it's going slow. You're getting started. Okay, I promised you that I would talk to you a little bit about networking. Let's talk about that. Now, your ability to network will either hold you back or help you reach your goals faster than you ever thought possible. This is really important, so please pay attention. Networking is something that takes time and doesn't necessarily bear fruit overnight. Oftentimes, you'll make a connection that might not pay off for months or for years. But the key is to get out on a regular basis and start meeting people. Why? Because the simple truth is that people hire and work with people that they know, not random people, not people who cold call them from some directory they bought off the internet. You know, the music business is all about connections and timing. Who do you know and who knows you? You want to be the right person in the right place at the right time. Now, I know networking can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. It was for me when I first started. But if you make networking part of your regular activity, it'll become less awkward over time. So let me give you some networking tips. No matter what, you don't want to live on an island and isolate yourself. So don't just hole up in your room making music. Become a part of your local music scene. Go to other musician shows. Go to open mics. Go to any kind of event where there are live performances. Hang out at local music shops. Get to know the venues you might want to play in, the bars or the clubs in your local area. You know, I know this sounds simple, but you'd be so surprised how many musicians walk into a bar trying to book a gig without ever having been in that room before, without chatting people up or getting to know the scene. That is step one. Well, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, but I don't live in a big music city, Dave, and there's really no music scene around here. Stop making excuses for yourself. There is some kind of music community locally, even if it's just a few people who play at a farmer's market or something. You start there, look around. You'll be surprised what kind of opportunities can come out of these connections. So as your first networking exercise, I want you all to brainstorm right now. Think about it. What kind of music events or gigs or clubs or scene can you get involved with locally right now, this week? What bars and clubs do live music around you? Who hosts songwriting circles or songwriter nights? Who hosts open mics? What local community events feature live music? Are there any studios around you? Create a list. Once you have a list like that, I want you to actually go to one of these events and just hang out and take in the vibe and meet people and see what's there. Now, I know Nigel's got some stories about, you know, the importance of networking and making connections and opportunities that came to him completely out of the blue from places that he totally didn't expect. So I'm going to turn it over to Nigel for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You know, I really can't agree with this more. It's, in fact, if I think about my playing career, just about every opportunity that I had came from a chance meeting with somebody, and it wasn't always necessarily a meeting that I thought would ever lead to something. Now, even right back at the very beginning when I wanted to start, I actually trained as a classical musician originally, but I always wanted to be a jazz musician. I was practicing jazz, but I wanted to get out playing that. And so what I did was exactly what you're saying, Dave. I was going out to all the local venues regularly. I was paying the money, going and seeing the band, talking to the musicians, eventually taking my saxophone along, getting to know these people, sitting in for a number here and there, and which eventually led to, you know, doing gigs with these people. And it sounds kind of basic at that level, but you know what? It was exactly that same sort of connection and a random conversation that led to me booking all those musicians and running that show I mentioned to you earlier on at the start of the session. It was a chance conversation with some fella when I was warming up backstage before a theater show. That fella turned out to be the guy who owned the whole show and half a dozen other shows in the West End. And what do you know? I get a phone call a couple of months down the track asking me if I could actually look after that show for a short tour in Denmark, which ended in being a very lucrative 10-year relationship with that. So definitely, music is a connection business. And even if I've got time, Dave, to share one more quick story. So on a slightly different angle, I remember traveling and going seeing gigs. I was in New York at one point for a few weeks, and I went to see as many gigs as I could, and I was getting the cheap tickets, so I stood at the back of the room. But I was watching this gig, and I got talking to a couple of blokes that were stood next to me. And it turned out they were musicians, and they said, "Oh, we're going up to see this jam session after this. Come along." So we jumped in a cab, and we went uptown, and we went to see this jam session. Turned out the guy who was playing saxophone at the jam session, well, I knew who he was. This guy called Lenny Pickett, who is the musical director for Saturday Night Live. He's a top guy, and I'm a big fan of his playing. But you know what? We had a conversation, sat down, had a cuppa, and he invited me in the next day to go and sit in with the band on the stage of Saturday Night Live for a rehearsal. How awesome is that? You couldn't even imagine that. And so connections can happen in the weirdest places. You've got to get out and start talking to people, build those relationships, and then just see where they go.
That's right. Okay. So I'm going to give you a secret right now, a networking secret that so many people miss. When you meet somebody, you want to approach them with a question like, hey, how can I help you? As opposed to, how can you help me? This is so key. You want to have a few questions in your back pocket that you can use to start off conversations with people. Things like, hey, what do you do? Or what kind of projects are you working on? Or what do you think of the band that's up there? Questions like that get people talking about themselves, which is going to give you a better idea of how you can help them and how you might work together. And that's how you start networking. That's how you start building a relationship. Because once a relationship and a connection point is established and you have, some common ground, you can start talking about how you might work together. And remember, no connection is a bad connection. Local musician, event coordinators, local companies, businesses, restaurants, bars, the people who work at the clubs, everyone is involved at one point or another in picking music or picking musicians. You might be the right person at the right place at the right time, and you happen to meet somebody and they remembered you. And when a band fails to show up for a gig and they need a filler, you might be the one they call. Because no connection is a bad connection, okay? Don't walk up to people and hand them your CDs. Start a conversation and start it about them. All right, I'm going to give you 3 approaches that you can take to turn music into revenue. Now, I'm going to speed through this because there's a lot that goes into releasing music, into gigging, into licensing. So I'm going to give you a little overview of all of these very quick. If you want to release music, the first step is, of course, getting your music recorded and ready to release. Now, you may already have some songs recorded, but if not, here are just some quick tips. If you don't have much of a budget for recording, you don't need to go into a fancy studio. You really don't. Do you have any home studio equipment yourself? Do you have a buddy who has a little home studio? Are there any local home studios nearby? The point is to do as good as you can with the resources and the budget you have right now and get your music out there and start seeing what you can do with it. And if you make any money with it, you can invest it into that next recording. A lot of people get hung up on this. Just record something. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you needed to get a track mastered, there are services like Landr, Landr, that can master a track for you for hardly any money. Don't let that hold you back. Make a recording, get it out there. Before you start distributing your music, it's worth your while to submit it for copyright registration. So you register your songs with your country's performing rights organization. In the States, it's ASCAP or BMI. It depends where you live. There's a performing rights organization in your country. It's usually free to register your song with a PRO, and they will collect performance royalties for you if your song ever ends up getting played on the radio or in a public space. Now, depending on your country, actually registering a copyright may cost a small fee, but sometimes you can bundle a bunch of songs together into a single registration to save money. This protects your rights. When it comes to distributing your music and making it available for people to start streaming or buying it or listening to it, your cheapest and best option are companies like CD Baby or TuneCore. They're very popular. They're very reliable. There are other companies like them, but these guys will get your music on stores like iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, everything that counts. And you can be distributing your music in a few days, few weeks from when you sign up. DistroKid, Ditto Music, there are tons of other options. Just pick somebody and get started. This should not be something that holds you back. And if you want something physical to offer to sell at gigs, you know, you could create download cards, or you could press a very small number of CDs. Just get yourself ready to go. That's recording, protecting your rights, and distributing very quickly. Let's talk about gigging. How can you make money performing? You know, most of the time with local venues, you're going to get a percentage of the ticket sales. You can also make money selling merch and CDs at your gigs and other things that you can bring with you. So just like everything else, you want to start small and work your way up. So back to what kind of open mic events or songwriter circles can you get involved in to work on your performance chops? Okay, so that you're not out there at your first paying gig the first time you ever perform. Try not to do that, all right? Go out and play free gigs. It's very important to get comfortable with performing before you start pitching yourself for a paying gig or for a bigger opportunity. You want to be ready. I've seen so many artists use busking as a tool to improve their live performance skills and get used to playing in front of people before they go and try booking a, you know, quote, real venue. Just get out there. You know, live shows aren't just about playing your songs. It's about engaging with an audience, sort of getting your rap down, being comfortable in front of people. So use every single time you perform as a chance to take note of how people are reacting to your performance, right? How do they react to you? How do they react to your songs? Which songs do they like? Pay attention. You know, Nigel's played some really incredible gigs, but you know, a lot of the opportunities he got as a performer started really small, right? You want to share a couple stories, Nigel, before we move on?
Yeah, sure thing, Dave. Actually, you know, I love what you're saying here. It's really, really good advice. And something, I mean, I remember doing exactly the same kind of thing. One of the other projects I ran in England for a number of years was a function band, like a corporate function type band. And we ended up being a really busy band. I mean, one of the busiest bands in the UK. And we got to do fun things like flying off to play on people's yachts and getting flown out to Canada and playing private parties for people like Simon Cowell and stuff like that. Awesome fun. However, when we first put that band together, they were all really good musicians. But you know what we did is we found a local venue that had nothing on a Tuesday night, and we went and talked to them and said, can we come and play at your venue? And, you know, you don't need to pay us. In fact, the deal we made in the end is they paid us in pizza, would you believe? They paid us in pizza. But what we did, and it was such a great thing because it meant that we could get the band tightened up, be rehearsing the band. Plus, we could start to build our audience. Yeah, we're bringing friends and family along, but we're also building an audience around what we're doing. And also it gave us a platform where we could talk to other venue people and say, hey, you know what? We're doing a gig if you want to come and check us out Tuesday night, you know, and from that, the band became very, very busy, and we had an abundance of work. But that's where it started. And I think that's something that you need to be willing to try. Really
awesome.
Important.
Okay, moving on. We talked briefly about this, but you know, if you can open for a friend to get yourself into a bigger venue, that gives you an opportunity. Maybe you don't even get paid, but gives you an opportunity to play that room, get to know the booker for that room, get a little experience playing in a live venue. So do it. It's a proven strategy to get yourself off the ground. And start collecting data when you're in a room. You know, how many people are showing up for shows? Know your draw so that when you start moving up the ladder and you start trying to book shows on your own, you have a reasonable expectation about how many people will actually show up. Very important when you're trying to book larger venues. More about that in the program that I'm going to show you in a second. Let's talk about licensing. Licensing is essentially renting your songs to other people, and it's a great option for indie songwriters and composers to make really good money. So for example, you can license your song to be used in a TV show, a YouTube video, a film, an advertisement. There are lots of different ways. In return, you get paid a sync fee. There are other opportunities to get other kinds of royalties from your performing rights organization, but take a look at this. I hope you can see these numbers. This is the kind of money that's available in licensing. You know, if you look in the kind of the middle of the screen, a cable TV show, you get your music license in a cable TV show, it could be worth $800 or $900 for that one placement. Or an indie film, you know, could be worth $3,000 or $4,000 for that one placement. There's real money in licensing. Now the sync fee, the actual fee, is going to be dependent on the type of placement that you get. And you see a range here that we get from the SongTrader pricing tools. In order to get started licensing, you just need a few things. You need a few good songs. You don't need a huge catalog. You want to make sure that you have great recordings of those songs. You know, most licensing opportunities will have submission guidelines listed that'll tell you the exact file type that they are looking for. But just make sure that you're ready, your songs are high quality, and you've registered with a performing rights organization. Now, how do you look for licensing opportunities? One of the easiest ways is use music production libraries and get your music placed in there. These libraries are essentially databases of songs that you can submit your music to, and people like music supervisors, filmmakers, and anyone else looking to license music will search that database, find something they like, and they'll pay a sync fee. If your song is licensed through a library, you'll normally get a 50-50 split of whatever that sync fee is. Another option is to, you know, be more of a networker and bypass the library and go directly to music supervisors, ad agencies, indie filmmakers, YouTubers. You know, that approach requires more legwork on your part, but it can be a lot more upside because you get to keep all of the sync fee. Some people start with libraries, move over into more of a direct approach. Well, they're really quickly right now today, I've given you a quick overview of revenue streams that you could tap into. There's a lot more detail that goes into it, a lot more that you could do, that we do go into in the Music Business Accelerator course, but I crammed as much as I could into this presentation, and I hope that I've given you some ideas that can help you take the next step toward your aspiration in music. We're going to take your questions in just a minute. But you know, there's a lot more to building a successful music career than what we can cover in one webinar. You're probably wondering, you know, it's all great, Dave, but how do I actually book gigs? You know, how do I book without a booking agent? How do I communicate with my fans on social media? What do I talk about? What do I email my fans? Maybe I got an email list, but what do I send them? I mean, there are a lot of good questions. And, you know, how do you take that next step to bigger gigs and bigger audience? There's a lot of challenges and so many questions. That's why I created the Music Business Accelerator, to help take you step by step through everything that you need to know and understand to build a sustainable and profitable business around your music. Now, honestly, for years, I've seen so many musicians spend so much time struggling to figure things out, trying to work, you know, within the old system, getting turned down by labels, wasting their times chasing these deals that don't exist anymore, instead of taking their career into their own hands, getting yourself off the ground, because that is the better way. And once you have a roadmap and you know what to do and a plan for yourself, it's so much easier to get your career off the ground than you may think. And I've seen it over and over again. I mean, just check out Eric. He's been in music his whole life, but now he's finding joy and success managing and producing a young duo. He switched from the performance role to a management role, and he's really gotten good at it. And they're playing a lot of gigs. They're winning awards because he's decided to follow his dream and focus. Or Irenka. Irenka here, she's been traveling all over the world, making connections, networking like crazy, performing, and she's seeing a lot of success. For her success is being able to support herself with her music full time, and the fact that she's accomplished that is just so cool. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what kind of a program have these people gone through. They all went through my Music Business Accelerator, which happens to be my best-selling online program. It's self-paced, and it's all about music business and career development training. The program normally sells for $497, and it's designed especially for active people who want to get their career off the ground while they're doing everything else. It helps you focus on the practical day-to-day things you need to know to book your gigs, to communicate with your audience, and to sell your music. But also the long-term planning that goes into creating a successful career. The course really gets you to think like a musical entrepreneur, what I've been talking about all day here in the webinar. And I walk you through step by step how to turn your music into something sustainable that can support you for years to come. So what's exactly inside the course? Well, it's these 12 modules that you see right here that can really jumpstart your career. Module 1, you'll learn how to focus in on what you really want. And you can set actionable goals that will be so much easier to achieve once you start putting it all down. It'll give you confidence to start thinking outside the box and thinking like a musical entrepreneur. Our second module, you'll learn how to build a team, how to organize your time and juggle all those tasks that you need to get done to keep your career moving forward. There are specific strategies that you can use to attract people to come help you realize your dream. Module 3 and 4 are all about gigging and touring profitably. You'll discover very easy to implement approaches to booking great gigs on your own with no booking agent. Module 5 and 6 are all about recording, distributing, and streaming. I'll teach you everything that you need to know to get your album or single recorded, produced, released, and out to your fans. Module 7 and 8 cover copyright and licensing. I'll demystify everything that's confusing about copyright, so you'll know exactly how to leverage your rights, and you'll learn all about licensing and how to get your music placed in film, TV, and commercials. Modules 9 and 10 are all about marketing, about social media and promotion, and communicating your message to your audience. You'll learn how to break through the noise and get your music noticed by true fans who will support you in what you're trying to do with your music. And finally, modules 11 and 12 are about money and crowdfunding. You'll learn how to successfully raise money for your projects and how to get organized with a budget. And throughout the program, you'll develop a plan for yourself, a musician's business plan that'll keep you motivated and help you prioritize, attract a team, and get you to where you want to go. Okay, because you're here today on this webinar, I also have 3 bonuses for you that you'll get if you sign up for the Music Business Accelerator today. Bonus 1 is a private online community where you can connect with other indie musicians, songwriters, and producers from all over the world. You can collaborate. You can get feedback on your music and support from a lot of really smart people. Tap into our huge community of musicians from all over the world, and it'll give you an instant network to get started. All kinds of people all over the world. And I'm in that group all the time answering questions and giving feedback. Bonus 2 is a huge curated database of musicians' resources, tools, and services that Chelsea and I have put together. We created this so that you don't have to spend months researching where to find what you need to make your vision a reality. What am I talking about? we've compiled some of the very best promo services, email services, distribution options, website builders, merch companies, social media tools, directories, literally everything that you could need to fuel your career. And we constantly update it, and we constantly add stuff and keep it fresh for you. Bonus number 3 is a collection of exclusive templates, a career map, a project planner, and a budget. With these tools, I ask you all the right questions that a good manager would ask you that will give you a plan of attack that's specifically created to address your personal goals, because everybody's goals are different. Okay, so today, right now, right here on the webinar, you can get lifetime access to the Music Business Accelerator course, plus all of these bonuses that I'm showing you. You get access to our community, you get access to the database of resources, you get my career building templates, and you can get it all right now for just $297. That's $1,988 worth of proven training. Thousands of people have been through this program for only $297. Or you can opt in for a payment plan and get started for just $39 a month, 12 payments of $39. This is proven and practical music business training that will jumpstart your career no matter what it is that you want to do. So just go to that link if you would, right there, newartistmodel.com/MBA for Music Business Accelerator. Take advantage of the deal. And you know, to entice you to join me in the course right now, or let's say by midnight tonight, I'm going to give you 3 more custom guidebooks as a super bonus if you sign up today. No matter where you are in your career, whether you're just starting out, or you're trying to enter music as a second career, or you're thinking about maybe having music be a bigger part of your retirement years, whatever it is, we have a guide that can help you kickstart and build a business around your music right now. These guides are worth an additional $97. You get them free when you sign up for the Music Business Accelerator while we're right here on the webinar or by midnight tonight. You get lifetime access to everything. If you're super busy right now, don't worry about it. You can lock in this deal. You can start the program whenever you want to. So I'm going to take your questions in just a second. I want you to know that if you're looking to take your passion for music and turn it into something more, if you want to share your songs with the world and find your audience, an audience that truly relates to your music and will support you, if you want to start living the life in music that you always imagined for yourself, here you go. This is the best time to start. I can help you achieve all of those things. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee. You know, ultimately, your career is the most important thing to me, and if the program isn't right for you, no problem. No worries, no risk. You have nothing to lose by signing up and checking it out. I hope you can see how excited I am about this. And I promise you all free ebook, so here you go. You go to that same link, newartistmodel.com/MBA. You go to the very bottom of the page, and you'll see that ebook, Your Music Plan for Success. Just click on it. It'll pop up, and there you go. And while you're there, check out the course, check out all the bonuses we have for you, and think about, you know, is this something for you? And are you ready to make the commitment to invest in yourself and start to take things into your own hands and create a successful music career? All right, here we go. We're going to take your questions. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Ready?
We're ready.
All right, we didn't get a ton of questions, so if you guys have questions, type them in because we're going to have room for more. But this one came from Barry. What can a live band recording and performing mostly original music do within a 100-mile radius in the Northeast U.S.? These were some ideas he threw out. Existing venues, self-made venues such as renting a space, YouTube videos with monetization. What other things are there that they can do?
You want to take that, Nigel, or you want me to?
Well, I think there's so many options. I think today, and a big part of what you're talking about, Dave, is that whole thing of taking responsibility for building that audience around you. And so my best advice today would be focusing on that. And the money will always come, but the audience needs to come first. And so I would suggest, if you've got local venue where you can play, you can bring people in, you can get people excited about what you're doing, that's awesome. But don't forget about that online audience. So you've got YouTube and Facebook and all the social networks, which are brilliant for reaching an even bigger audience. And those audience that aren't near you, that you're reaching through the internet, they can still be people who are supporting you financially through all the sort of things that you talk about in the course, Dave. I think that's a really important thing to be focusing in on. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many strategies that you can use. There's this notion of concentric circles. As you start in your hometown, you own your hometown. You have to get really good at playing your hometown. Play everywhere that you can. Then you look at a little wider circle. Maybe you trade openers with a friend of yours who's already playing in a region that you haven't played in. Then you look at a wider circle. It's a networking game. It's getting to know people. It's taking risk. It's being willing to open for folks, maybe when sometimes you don't think you have to. It's getting to know people and getting out there. That's a lot of what live performance is all about. I'm just, Chelsea, while you get the next question ready, I'm just cruising through, some of your original goals. Everybody wants to make some money with music. Some of you want full-time income. Some of you want to supplement your income. I can tell you with thousands of musicians that I've worked with there's still plenty of money flowing in music. Don't think that there isn't. Just because it's difficult to sell recorded music these days, it's not impossible by any means. There are strategies that you can use free music. We shared some of this with you in one of our emails to help build your audience, to bring people to gigs. There are a lot of strategies today that you can use to create income and to create recurring income for yourself. And the three pillars that we talked about, recording and distribution is one, live performance is another, and licensing is another. So all I can say for most of you is, go for it. Don't hold yourself back. There are a lot of people that are out there having a lot of success.
I love the point that you made in the session today, Dave, about niche, about thinking about your musical niche. I think that's a really important one, and something a lot of people overlook, this concept that they need to appeal to everybody. The narrower that you go with the niche, I think the more supportive that your fans will be. And yeah, so I think you should always focus down. So that ties in with the question that we had before as well. And I think it's really encouraging for anybody who's an indie artist, someone starting out wanting to make their own music, because there are people that will love you, will be your fan base, and they will support you. And that's the most important thing. I mean, financially support you if you give them the opportunity.
Yeah. I want to comment on a post that's here from Alvin. Alvin, you still need, this is your quote, you still need massive amounts of promotion dollars to increase fan base and commercial radio airplay. I mean, I would argue, except for one or two real huge genres, that's the absolute worst thing you could ever do. That's how you become a one-hit wonder, if you ever hit at all, and you'll just be 99% of the time wasting your money. Instead, you want to build an audience slowly and get to know those people and figure out who's a real fan versus somebody that some person, some promo dollar bought for you, because you're never going to have a long-term career like that. Instead, you put in the work, pick a niche strategy, and begin to build up your audience. Take your time. You'll be way better off. I have people in my programs that have, audiences of 2,000, 5,000 people. They're making decent money, quitting their jobs. They have no big promotion dollars behind them. They have no radio airplay behind them. You just pick a different strategy. So don't think that you have to, swing for the fences or grab that brass ring, because it's just not true.
We had a great comment from Lance, who was saying he's a saxophone player. He plays solo at wine bar gigs. but he's finding building its exposure difficult. You're saying you like the idea of collaborative work. I think a lot of people struggle with that, actually. That maybe if you're working as a solo or a duo, maybe playing with backing tracks, and you want to get out and expand what you're doing. The collaboration thing is brilliant. And these days, I'm seeing a lot of people. And I talk to a lot of people that big name artists as well, who are doing exactly the same thing. That I was talking to. So if you're a saxophone player, there's a guy called Boney James, who's a big smooth jazz artist.
Yeah.
And I was talking with him recently, and he was saying how he had a singer he really wanted to sing on his album on one of the tracks. And he did exactly that. He reached out through Twitter, and he made a connection with this guy, and they did it. They did it in their own home studios, and it ended up being on an album that was then broadcast everywhere. But it's the same principle for someone at that level to somebody who, if you're just getting started. So making those connections. With the internet, you can do that more easily. And I think if you want to break out of that solo thing into a bigger circle of people and connecting with people, and maybe as a saxophone player playing on someone else's track, you're building a network of people, and more people are hearing you as well. So it all grows.
It's so true. I mean, it's a cliche, but it's all about who knows you and who you know, and being the right person in the right place at the right time. I can't stress that enough. The more people you know, the better off you're going to be, the more experience you're going to have, the more opportunities you're going to have. All right, sorry. What else you got, Chelsea?
All right, this question came in from Dan, and maybe you'll be able to speak to this from experience, Nigel. Can you speak a little bit more about recordings and how to get quality recordings at a low cost? We kind of touched at this in the presentation, but if you guys have any more points that you could mention.
You got any points on that, Dave?
Well, you want to try and work with someone who has some audio production experience. If you have no experience yourself, it's going to be difficult at first to get a recording you're on your own that's gonna kind of cut it. So I would find somebody that you could work with who understands what production is all about, what the recording process is about, and keep your arrangement, simple to get your first few songs off the ground, but focus on quality, right? Have clean recordings, have a production engineer or mixer working with you. So see who who you can work with to help you get your first recordings made. It can be in a bedroom with a simple USB mic and an interface for your laptop and the right kind of software. It doesn't have to be a big room. You don't need a Neve console or anything like that. But you do need to work with somebody who understands what recording and production is all about.
I think a really important point on that too, Dave, is that these days it is so much cheaper and simpler to get a great product. And there's plenty of albums that are out that are being successful that are recorded on a laptop and a simple microphone. So the gear itself has become cheaper, and most of us have got tools already that we can use for that. Most laptops are going to be powerful enough for it. It's more about understanding, like you say, Dave, the process of it, getting the recording in the right space, recording in the right way, and a bit of knowledge can go a long way. But I think again, reaching out into your network, building a network of people, you'll be able to find people that can help you with that. And it's not necessarily going to be an expensive thing to get them to help you with that either. Right.
If you're really interested in learning about recording yourself, we have a course called the Lucrative Home Studio. So if you just go to the New Artist Model site, you'll see that on the site. It's a course really designed to teach you about production. And it could be a place to start for you if that's something that you want to do. You want to develop your chops. You want to develop your home studio.
All right. Do we have time for another?
Yeah.
All right. This one came from Linda, and a few people were asking about cover songs, honestly. How do you get permission from an artist or publisher to cover their song? Is there a fee to cover and record someone else's song? How does that all work?
Well, here in the States, you would go to an organization called the Harry Fox Agency, and you would get a mechanical You get permission to record a song. It's a compulsory license. They have to give it to you. You pay a very small fee for that, but you just request the license. They give it to you. You can now create a cover. And you can distribute a recording of that cover as long as you pay the licensing fee. There are other organizations around the world. Nigel, you may have some tips on Europe.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. We've got the PRA over here. So it's the same process, though. Yeah, it's applying for it, and you get it. And it's not that expensive either, Dave.
No. They may ask for a little advance, but it's it's a few pennies per copy of a physical recording, and it's much less than that on a streaming basis. But if you want to sing and record covers, Linda, you can go ahead and do it. Depending on what country you're in, you look for the mechanical license to do that. If you want to email me with questions about that, I'm dave@newartistmodel.com. You can email me anytime. I'll see if I can point you to the right person or right organization. All right, let's take 2 more questions.
All right, this one came in for Nigel from Lance. As a sax player, sometimes I feel my options are limited because I do not play multiple instruments. Primarily, I play alto, but I do have a tenor. Any tips of how to handle this handicap?
Wow, I wouldn't call it a handicap, Lance, but it really depends on the sort of thing that you want to do. There's so many different paths, I think if you want to go down that route of being a jobbing musician and playing in other people's bands, or there's any variety. There's so many different options and different paths you can go down without playing for shows, or playing in touring bands, or playing in gigging bands that are playing locally. Then yeah, sometimes having 2 saxophones or 3 saxophones, or playing flute and clarinet as well is advantageous. But if you're going down your own path and you're wanting to put out your own music and you're building an audience around that, then it's really up to you which saxophone you play. I think you just need to think about what your goal is, where you're heading for with music. And I think that's an important question that most people don't ask themselves. So yeah, you need to think about what your ultimate goal is. That was a pretty vague answer, wasn't it? I can tell you, as a guy that's booked hundreds and hundreds of the best players in England for doing shows, particularly saxophone players, and I'm talking about these sort of gigs where they're playing in huge theaters and they're touring around. Yeah, I'm looking for the best players who can play alto, tenor, they can improvise, they can play flute and clarinet. They're brilliant readers, but they're like, that's one specific job where I'm paying them to do that particular task. But there's a lot of people who have very, rewarding careers that don't go down that path. So you just need to choose what's right for you. I wouldn't see it as a limitation, more so focus on what it is that you're trying to get out of your career as a saxophone player.
Okay, I'm going to just jump in, Chelsea. One thing that I see here, a few people are asking about is, what happens if my songs get plagiarized, or if I don't have copyright, or, I don't do it correctly. It's not as important to worry about as you might think. The hardest thing to do is to get people to notice your music, to get them to listen to it, to get them to appreciate what you do. So I would spend more time on that side of the equation than, worrying about airtight protection, and, building up a legal fund and everything else. Because, your hardest part is going to be getting your music out there and getting people to enjoy it and appreciate it. So focus on that, all right? So many people are held back by, my recording isn't perfect, or I haven't registered the copyright correctly, or don't worry about that stuff. It's secondary to getting your music out in front of people and getting people to appreciate it. That's the hardest thing to do. So work on that, right? You can always copyright stuff at a later date. Don't worry about it. Get out there, start making music, start playing live, all the things that I talked about. You'll be better off in the long run. Don't hold yourself back. If there's anything that I want you to take away from this webinar today, is to get started, right? Because you're the only one holding yourself back. So for just a second here, if you all stay with me, I'm going to go back to our presentation, and then I've got a little video for you. So you go to newartistmodel.com/MBA. That's where your free ebook is, at the bottom of that page. While you're there, check out the program, because right now you can sign up for this proven system and get everything that I showed you, including the Music Business Accelerator, all 12 modules, the exclusive community, the career map, the planning tools, the musician resources, the quick start guide. Today only $297 or $39 a month. Go to newartistmodel.com/MBA and sign up. Thank you, Nigel, for being here. Thank you, Chelsea, for being here. And thanks, everyone, for coming. If you have any questions at all, you can email me at dave@newartistmodel.com. Be happy to answer. And stay tuned for a little video that we have for you. And I hope to see you all inside our Music Business Accelerator program. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Chelsea.
I've been really, really enjoying your program. It's been life-changing, really, from the start when I came across to you on Facebook, and you had all these free videos showing up for the power tools. I got really excited, and I started to apply what you were teaching, and it absolutely changed my life. After I was watching your program, I learned the right tools and how do I get the right views. So now, for example, at first my very first videos, they had like a couple of hundred of views. Now the first video that I released on my YouTube channel actually just got over 100,000 views. So that was a really exciting stepping stone for me to really move forward in my career. So that was the big life changer for me.
I came in as, actually, I was 20 years as a professional vocalist and wanted to move from performing into getting behind the scenes as a songwriter. And when I first met you, I thought, is this program really going to suit someone like me? It seemed more geared for performers, and you were like, so I emailed you a few times, and of course Dave's awesome, so he gets right back to me and says, absolutely, you'll meet amazing people, which I did. People that, if you had put it out in the real world, there's like, you're never going to songwrite with those people. They're kind of above my level of, you know, if we're going to put people in peer groups. But we just connected, we built friendships, and before I knew it, I was writing with people that had already had established careers, and now getting some demos made with them in Nashville, which is such a gift. I mean, I'm thrilled with that, getting to work with artists all over the world. My career would be nowhere at the level that it is right now if it wasn't for your program, going through the entire program from the beginning to the end, video course by video course, and then you've got to be online all the time making friendships. That's the key.
I found the New Artist Model to be really helpful in figuring out everything, especially that's not the artist side. So what I found out about myself was I've spent a ton of time being the artist I want to be, but not finding the kind of businessman I want to be. And learning how to put the two together in a way that I felt okay about has always been a challenge. I found the New Artist Model to be really helpful because it gives me a way to take the control to be the artist I want and to find a practical way to make that my living.
So I did a Kickstarter campaign sort of on my own and did some Nashville recording, and I had a CD, and sort of what now? And you came along at just exactly that point, and I joined the Essential program, and later added the power tools, which are also absolutely terrific. You were very insistent that my first step should be to get a manager. And I thought, I'm just starting open mics again for the first time in 30 years. I'm not sure I need a manager. But I took it seriously. Before I knew it, I had run into a guy who's just my age who has been wanting to get into managing and love my music. And the opportunities that my friend Alex has gotten me have just been fantastic. So pushing me beyond my comfort zone and saying, this really is the next step, you got to take it seriously, was really great.
I got a cut shortly after I joined your program, the Contemporary Christian Country Act. Turns out they're going to make it the title track of the record, and it's the single. So if it wasn't for you, it literally none of this would have ever happened, because I've been a musician my whole life, but I networked like a salesperson, not like a musician. And it's a different deal. You have to build relationships organically, and that is what I learned from you. I didn't have a Facebook account when I met you, and these relationships and these cuts, man, if I traced them back, if we were to go back and Kevin Bacon's 6 Degree Separation, they'd all come back to you, me, and the first, going through the program and learning how to use these tools that are available to everybody. They're just not maybe using them properly, and there's too many people teaching them how to do it wrong, and one guy teaching them how to do it right, and the results kind of speak for themselves. There
is not one time in all of my years as a professional vocalist where anyone said to me, by the way, where did you get your degree? All they wanted to know is, how great do you sing? Can you pull the job off? They don't ask for a degree. They just want to know that you've got the chops, that you can get the job done. So the rest of it today, because when I was doing it for a living, we didn't have social networking. We didn't have, any of this. And so what Dave is giving you are all the tools where you can build this amazing career online. And you've got people like myself, people like Todd, that have walked the road before you, and we're all in the group saying, yes, we're here, we'll help you, and just ask. We're like the most giving people, and we want to pay it forward.